So the first thing I do for the kitchen clam bake is heat up some olive oil, add onions and leeks. It's just 3 cups of chopped onions and 2 cups of chopped leeks, and just saute them for about 15 minutes, just until they're really caramelized. I've made this clam bake so many times, and all I remember is the times I screwed it up. Once I remember I made it for Patricia Wells, my friend who writes cookbooks in Paris, and I completely forgot to put the wine in. and it was like, why isn't it steaming? And I used to do it with lobsters, and once I took the lobsters out while I was serving the clam bake just to keep them warm in the oven. And then the next day, Jeffrey said to me, that was delicious, but I don't remember having a lobster. And I was like, oh my God, the lobsters are still in the oven. That was the next morning. But you know what? There was so much going on in the clam bake. It was so much fun to eat that I actually didn't make it with lobsters again. Okay, now I'm gonna layer all kinds of good things. Yukon Gold potatoes right in the bottom. I wanna make sure they're all spread out in one layer so they cook evenly. I've got 1.5 pounds in here. And then kielbasa. I just love the kielbasa. I love the spices in the kielbasa and the flavor of it. It really seasons the broth, and it's so good to eat with the clams. And the amount on the kielbasa is 1.5 pounds. A tablespoon of salt. It's a big pot. Half a tablespoon of pepper. So this is gonna make cooked seafood, but it's also gonna make the most delicious broth. And I serve both of them. So that's the base. The potatoes and the kielbasa are gonna cook together. And then I'm layering on top 2 different kinds of clams. These are little neck clams, 2 dozen of them. I mean, this is about as easy as it gets, isn't it? Okay, the next clams are steamers, 1 pound of them. Just make sure they're all really well cleaned. They're scrubbed and have no sand in them. This isn't a clam bake that you want sand in. And next I'm gonna put in mussels that have been debearded and scrubbed. Just layer it on top. I'm adding 2 pounds of them. Next, it's 2 pounds of shrimp. And I do them in the shell. I think they cook really well in the shell, and then everybody can peel their own. Kind of makes it fun. And the last thing is an entire bottle of white wine. And pick something you want to drink with it. So I'm doing a white Chateau Neuf du Pape. It doesn't have to be really expensive, it just has to be pretty good wine. And pour that on top. I mean, how bad can that be? Just gonna turn the heat up, put the lid on, and let it cook. I think the clam bake smells ready. You like that I have my own cup for the broth? Okay, let's see how it's doing. This looks amazing. Wow. It's all cooked together. The broth looks amazing. It smells fantastic. So I'm gonna put it all in a big bowl and just let everybody help themselves. Look how fabulous this is. It's got kielbasa and clams and mussels and shrimp. You know, I've made this so many times, and usually I make it for kind of fancy things when people expect it to be really fancy. And I remember one time Jeffrey had investment banker friends coming, and I knew they were gonna show up in like jackets and ties for dinner. So I made a big clam bake. Everybody had to take off their jackets. And I gave them all chef's aprons to put on. And they rolled up their sleeves, and they had the most fun. I think that first they were a little horrified that they had to eat with their hands, but then they really got into it, and it was so much fun. So I just put this right in the middle of the, whoa, man overboard. I put this right in the middle of the table. Everybody helps themselves. And then I give everybody a cup of broth. When I was a caterer, I used to do this, but actually on the beach. Trust me, this is easier. This smells so good. I taste all the seafood and the leeks and the kielbasa and the wine. This is really good, and there's no sand anywhere. Cheers. So for 2 of us, I've got 3 pounds of mussels. I'm just gonna fill the bowl with water and then put a little bit of flour in the water. And what this does is it gets the mussels to give up any sand that's in them. So, okay, it smells like the sea. So while these are soaking, I'm gonna make a wine broth with lots of garlic and shallots. Heat up 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter. 1 cup of chopped shallots. right into the oil and butter. And then I need like 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. Just chop them up. This is a really garlicky dish. It's wonderful. Okay. I'm just going to cook these for a few minutes until the shallots are translucent and the garlic's cooked. In the meantime, I'm going to get some tomatoes ready. I need about 1/2 cup of canned tomatoes. I'm just going to chop them up in the measure. They don't have to be perfect, just a rough chop. Okay, now I need a little saffron, which I love. It's the stamens of crocuses, which is why it's so expensive. I'm just going to put about 1/2 teaspoon of saffron in. I can smell the saffron already. I need some fresh parsley. Okay, right in. Some fresh thyme. Not the stems, just the leaves. That's about 1/3 cup of parsley, and about 1 tablespoon of thyme. Okay, that should do it. Okay, now I need a cup of white wine. I picked a really nice dry white wine, something I drink for dinner. And this is what's going to steam the mussels. Now I'm going to see how the mussels are doing. So they've been soaking in the flour, and you can feel a little bit of sand, so it was good that we did it. And just make sure they're all closed really tight. So this one doesn't seem to want to close, so I'm going to discard that. I'm just going to take them out of the water, drain them into the broth. Just toss them with the broth. I'm gonna put on the lid, 8 to 10 minutes, and dinner's ready.
So what do you think we should do tomorrow?
You know, I was thinking, let's just really take a little vacation and go to Sag Harbor.
I'll take you for a walk.
On the dock?
Yeah, we'll look at the boats.
Okay. Walk down Main Street.
That's delicious. What a wonderful Saturday night dinner.
Let's make fresh crab nachos. So I've already grated some Monterey Jack, which is kind of classic for nachos, but I'm gonna add sharp cheddar, and I just think it adds layers of flavor that are really great. And you'll see how fast it is to grate it like this. A whole lot faster than a box grater, right? Okay, so next, the crab meat mixture. So I'm gonna make a creamy crab meat mixture, and starting with 6 ounces of room temperature cream cheese, and adding about 1/2 cup of mayonnaise, 1/4 cup of sour cream. I'm just gonna mash it together. This is gonna become the crab meat mixture that's gonna go on the chips, along with the cheese. Okay, lots of flavorings. Scallions, green chilies, fresh lime zest. The lime zest just gives it a little edge, which I love. Okay, and then the last thing I'm gonna put in is crab meat, 16 ounces of lump crab meat. Sometimes you get crab meat that's like shredded, and it's, I mean, it's perfectly delicious, but you don't have that kind of bite of crab meat. Okay, lots of salt and pepper. Make sure it has great flavor. And pepper. I have to say, these are my favorite nachos ever. Time to build the nachos. I'm gonna do it in 2 layers. You'll see how I do it. Got chips, and then half the crab meat mixture on top. Okay, lots of cheese, if I can get it off. So remember, this is Monterey Jack and sharp cheddar together. And then pickled jalapenos. Just spread them out so everybody gets some. Okay, another layer of chips. Okay, more crab meat. I have to say, people go crazy when I serve this. It's just so, I don't know, there's something so communal about it, and it's so delicious. Okay, and then more cheese. Everything's better with more cheese, right? Okay, into the oven, 375 degrees for 25 minutes, and in the meantime, I'm gonna make a salsa topping for it. Here goes. First, 5 large plum tomatoes, seeded, cored, and small diced. Then 1 cup of minced yellow onion, 3 tablespoons of minced fresh jalapeno pepper, seeds removed, 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lime juice to offset the spice, 1 tablespoon of good olive oil, a large ripe Hass avocado, pitted, peeled, and 1/3 inch diced, 3 tablespoons of minced parsley. If you use cilantro, I don't want to know about it. Then 1 teaspoon of salt. I'll stir it all together, and that's it. Oh, this is one big pan of gorgeousness. Wow. Okay, I'm just gonna put the salsa on top, just sprinkle it over. And I love that hot and cold thing going on at the same time. I mean, just think of all the flavors in this. It's just fabulous. Perfect. And then one more thing, squeeze of fresh lime juice. This is good. How pretty is this? And I would say fresh crab nachos is one of the most comforting appetizers I know. Shrimp bisque, I love it, but every recipe I've seen is really complicated. I decided I'm gonna see if I can make a really simple version that's just delicious. I bought fish stock, and I've added the shrimp shells to it to give it even more flavor. I'm gonna strain the fish stock. I need 3 3/4 cups. So if I have a little less, I'm just gonna add some water. Yeah, just a little water. Okay, so first thing I've done here is sauteed 2 cups of leeks and 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Just make sure the leeks are really, really clean before you cook them. Okay, I'm gonna add some garlic, about 1 tablespoon of garlic. Just saute it for about a minute. I actually love shrimp bisque. I like that rich shrimp flavor and a little bit of sherry. So the next thing I need is a little bit of cayenne pepper. Just a pinch, not too much. You don't want it to overpower the shrimp. And just cook that together. Okay. And then a pound of shrimp. This is where the shells came from. And just cook the shrimp for about 3 minutes until they're just perfectly pink and just tender. When the shrimp's cooked, I'm gonna add the rest of the ingredients and have a really rich, delicious shrimp bisque. Well, I can't make good shrimp bisque without sherry, but I've actually decided a little cognac would help it too. So I'm going to start with 1/4 cup of cognac. Just going to pour it right into the shrimp and leeks. Let it cook for a minute. That smells good. And 1/4 cup of dry sherry. And all that's just gonna really get into the shrimp and flavor the soup. Now that smells like shrimp bisque, shrimp and sherry, so classic. Okay, I'm gonna puree this now. So I'm gonna just put it right into the food processor. And now I'm just gonna puree it until it's really chunky. I don't like it when it's too smooth. Okay, that's perfect. So now I'm gonna make a white sauce that's gonna be the base of the soup. This white sauce is really the same kind of white sauce I made for the lasagna. I'm starting with 1/2 stick of butter, then 1/4 cup of flour. I'm gonna cook it over medium-low heat for about a minute, just to cook the flour. Then I'm adding 2 cups of half and half. I'm just gonna stir this until the half and half gets hot and it thickens with the flour. So far it's been pretty easy. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna put in is the pureed shrimp and leeks. Really smells good. You can smell the cognac and the sherry. That's gonna have so much flavor. The fish stock, 3 3/4 cups. 1/3 of a cup of tomato paste, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of pepper. And that's it. Just gonna stir it up and just let this simmer. All the flavors are gonna go together. It's gonna be rich and delicious, I hope. I'm making this incredible seafood stew called Cioppino. First, I need seafood stock to make the base of the stew. So the base starts with fennel and onions. I've got 2 cups of diced fennel, 1½ cups of diced onions. I've just cooked them in a little olive oil just until they're tender, about 10 minutes. Okay, now I'm gonna add 3 cloves of garlic, 1 teaspoon of whole fennel seeds. Really gives us an intense fennel flavor, just really good with seafood. 1/2 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, give it a little heat. I'm just gonna cook this for 2 minutes, just until the garlic's really fragrant. I'm gonna add 28-ounce can of San Marzano tomatoes. It's crushed. Next thing I need is 1½ cups of white wine. And you know I always say, use a white wine you would drink. I'm using Pinot Grigio, but you'll have 1/2 bottle of wine left to drink. Okay, now I need a tablespoon of salt. This is a big pot of seafood stew. 1 teaspoon of pepper. And next is 4 cups of seafood stock. Just pour it right in. It's a really rich stock. And this is gonna cook for 30 minutes. And while that happens, I'm gonna tell you how I made this gorgeous homemade seafood stock. Makes all the difference in the world. I put 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a pan and added shrimp shells from 1 pound of large shrimp, along with 2 cups of chopped yellow onions, 2 chopped carrots, 3 stalks of chopped celery, and mixed everything together and cooked them for 15 minutes. Then I added 2 cloves of minced garlic, gave it a stir, and I poured in 1½ quarts of water, added 1/2 cup of dry white wine, like Pinot Grigio, then added 1/3 cup of tomato paste, 10 sprigs of fresh thyme, including the stems, 1 tablespoon of salt, and 1½ teaspoons of black pepper. Then I brought it all to a boil, lowered the heat, and simmered it for an hour. When the time was up, I strained the stock through a sieve, pressing the solids. Poured it into a quart container. Done. So I have 1½ pounds of cod. I might serve it with a salad to start, and then the seafood stew. Okay, so that goes in right into the stew. And at this point, you don't want to stir it too much because you don't want to break up the fish. Next is 1 pound of shrimp. I actually buy it peeled and deveined. It's 16 to 20 count, which means there's 16 to 20 shrimp in a pound. They're pretty good size. Okay, next is 1 pound of scallops. I've got sea scallops, and what I did was I cut them in half crosswise, so they're not too big. You can use bay scallops, but don't cut them. They're really small. What I've done with the mussels is I've got about 24 mussels, and I soak them in water with a little bit of flour in it, and that gets any sand out of the mussels. And rinse them. I don't want any flour in the stew. Just check to make sure the mussels are closed. It says they're alive. And now I'm just gonna put it right on the top. So sprinkle it over the top of the cioppino. Don't stir it at this point. You don't want to break everything up. Put the lid on and cook it for 10 minutes. That's gonna be delicious. How gorgeous. I wish you could smell it. It's amazing. And all the mussels are open, so we're good to go. I'm gonna turn off the heat and add one more thing, a tablespoon of Pernod, which is like anise-flavored liqueur. I'm gonna put the lid back on and let it sit for like 2 minutes, just so it really permeates all the seafood. Okay, I've got one more thing. I'm gonna serve it with garlic toast, and I've got them in the oven. So I've baked slices of baguette, olive oil, salt, and pepper, 400 degrees for 15 minutes. And now, in order to make them garlic toast, I'm gonna cut a piece of garlic in half and just rub the cut half right on the toast. And that way you don't have like a bite of garlic, you just have the flavor of it. And with the seafood, it's gonna be fantastic. Time Time to serve up the stew. How good does that look? Wow. A little bit of parsley on the top of each one, a couple of toasts, and I would say that's a seafood stew. I'm making ultimate tuna melts, which is basically a tuna sandwich, but with the volume turned way up. This is very retro food. And I'm starting with tuna, but not ordinary tuna. I'm starting with really good tuna. This is Spanish tuna. It's packed in olive oil, but it's big pieces, and it's absolutely delicious. It's moist. The flavor is fantastic. I really look for some kind of imported tuna in a glass jar. With all respect to American tuna, this is particularly good. Okay, the tuna's broken up. Not too much, but just enough. And now we're gonna add lots of good things. Some diced celery. I always use the hearts of celery. I just think it's tenderer than the outside. The outside can sometimes be a little stringy. Lots of scallions. Give it lots of onion flavor. Mix it all in. And dill. I know it doesn't normally go with a tuna fish sandwich, but it makes such a difference. About 3 tablespoons of fresh dill. Think of dill with seafood, but you don't normally put it in tuna salad. And I thought, let me try it. It was really good. It's got that kind of anisey flavor. Okay, fresh lemon juice. Kind of brightens everything. Salt and pepper. Give it a little heat. It's amazing how salt and pepper makes everything taste better. Okay, next is the mayonnaise. And what I'm gonna do is flavor the mayonnaise. About 3/4 of a cup of good grocery store mayonnaise. Next is anchovy paste, just 1 teaspoon. I know, there are a lot of people that don't like anchovy paste, but it just gives a little extra depth of flavor and you don't know it's anchovies. Okay, this is gonna go right into the tuna. I mean, so far, almost everything has been in your vegetable bin or your pantry. I'm gonna mix this in. This is just comfort food, weeknight dinner, perfect thing to make. My mother always used to make us tuna fish sandwiches when we were kids. Trust me, it didn't taste anything like this. These are so much better. Okay, tuna salad's done. I'm just gonna pile it on 4 pieces of toasted white bread. So that's the tuna, next is the cheese. So I've grated some Emmenthal, it's Swiss cheese. It's got a really good nutty flavor. I love it, and it's gonna be really good on this. I grated it so it melts a little better. I like the way it looks. I like the way it melts. I like the way it tastes. It's all good. I don't wanna see any orange slices on this. You want all the ingredients to have as much flavor as possible. Each thing has to earn its place in the recipe. Okay, into the oven under the broiler, just for 1 or 2 minutes, just until the cheese melts. I want the tuna still to be cool. Watch it really carefully. Okay, I think they're ready. Oh, this looks so good. Okay, tell me these aren't the best looking tuna sandwiches you've ever seen. I love these. And I'm not even a tuna melt aficionado, but these are really good. They look kind of gooey and cheesy and tuna fish. This is perfect retro food for a weeknight dinner. The ultimate comfort food. And because I can't ever leave well enough alone, I'm just gonna put a little microgreen on top. It's like a little peppery salad. It just kind of freshens the whole thing. I think you can find them in any grocery store now. It's like having a salad with your tuna melt. Scallops Provencal. I love making these. I know they're really fresh. Jeffrey and I just got them. It's about 1 pound of scallops, and the first thing I'm gonna do is just salt and pepper them. Sometimes people salt and pepper the flour, but I think it never really gets into the scallops, so I'm gonna salt and pepper them first and then flour them. So, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, lots of pepper, a little flour. And what the flour is gonna do is gonna sear the scallops really nicely, but it's also gonna get into the sauce, so it's gonna thicken the butter and lemon sauce. Okay. 2 tablespoons of butter. Just gonna put the scallops in 1 layer. I'm going to cook them on medium heat for about 2 minutes, and then I'll turn them and add lots of flavor. In the meantime, I'm going to chop up some shallots. So 2 big shallots. Sometimes when I'm making this for a dinner party, I get all the ingredients all prepped in advance, and the whole thing just takes 5 minutes in the pan. Just going to turn the scallops. Perfect, they're nice and browned. And see, the browning sort of sears them, gives them lots of flavor. Okay, that's going to cook for another 2 minutes, and I'm just going to chop up some garlic. So I'm going to chop up these ingredients and then just add them to the pan and make a sauce with butter and white wine. It's going to be just delicious. And in order for it to be really Provençal, parsley. So I need about 1/4 cup of chopped parsley. How bad can that be? Okay, just a rough chop. Okay, now for the sauce. I've got all my ingredients ready. So I'm just going to put 2 tablespoons of butter in. I'm going to put in the shallots, the garlic, and parsley, 1/4 cup of parsley. And just saute this all together so you can smell the garlic and the shallots and parsley together. Just about 2 minutes on the saute pan. And then 1/3 cup of white wine, and that's going to get all the brown bits in the bottom of the pan into the sauce. Just choose a nice dry white wine, something you'd want to drink with a meal, and then serve it with a dinner. Okay, that's really it. It's just perfect. Okay, I'm just going to leave that for a minute while I get some herbs for the rice. And dinner's ready. Time to serve everything up. Who doesn't love fish and chips? I do. Not the soggy kind you find in most restaurants, but really delicious, crisp on the outside, tender on the inside. Since my friend TR has a new shack, it's a fishing shack, I thought it'd be very appropriate to make fish and chips for him. So I'm just gonna make the batter and then I'm gonna cook the fish there. So the first thing I need is 1/2 cup of flour plus 1 tablespoon. 1/2 tablespoon of baking powder. 1/2 teaspoon of lemon zest, grated. A little pinch of cayenne to give it some heat. A teaspoon of salt. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. I'm gonna whisk in 1/2 cup of water. Some might think batter sounds like it's really complicated, but it's not. It's just like making pancakes on Sunday morning. You can make it ahead and just let it sit in the fridge. I'm gonna add 1 egg, just whisk it in. And that's it. And then at TR's house, I'm gonna dip the fish in it and fry it up. And I'm gonna make it with baked chips, which are delicious. TR's doing a fabulous job cutting the fish into 1.5 by 3 inch chunks. And I'm gonna make the chips, which instead of being fried chips, are baked chips. So I marinated them in oil with rosemary and garlic. I'm just gonna put them on the sheet pan and then roast them at 400 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes until they're nice and brown on one side. Then I'm gonna turn them over and brown them on the other. And they're gonna be really crisp on the outside as though I'd fried them. Okay, I'll do the salt, you do the pepper.
Okay.
How's that?
Perfect.
So this is only gonna take about 5 minutes to cook, and the potatoes are gonna take about 35 minutes. So you wanna show me the dock?
Of course.
Okay, so I've got 1/2 inch of oil in the pan to fry the fish, and it needs to get up to 360 degrees. And that way the fish will be really crisp on the outside and tender inside. I'm gonna check it with a candy thermometer. So let's see if the oil is 360 degrees. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm gonna take the fish fillets, put them in the batter. Remember, this is like the pancake batter. And then the fish goes right in. I'm just gonna put enough in so it doesn't get crowded. They cook pretty quickly, about 5 minutes total. So when it's brown on one side, just give it a nice turn. These look great. Look how nice and brown that is. That's fabulous. And those chips smell like they're just about done. These look great. The baked chips with rosemary and garlic and the fish. And I'm gonna wrap it up in 2 cones of newspaper, a little parchment or wax paper in the cone, and then I'm ready to fill it with fish and chips. This looks so great. And I'm off to TR with fish and chips, tartar sauce, and dill pickles. So I've got 4 center cut cod fillets. I like cod because it's kind of a meaty fish, but they're center cut because if you choose the end, it's going to be thin and they won't cook evenly. So 4 center cut cod fillets. I brush the bottom with olive oil, put the cod on top. I'm going to brush the top with olive oil, and that way they're just going to brown really nicely. You don't want something that's going to flake too much because it just doesn't have the same kind of substance to it. So olive oil, lots of salt and pepper. You want it to be really well seasoned, and some pepper. Okay, into the oven, 400 degrees for just 10 minutes. Okay, now for the topping. So I'm starting with Ritz crackers. Bet you didn't think I'd be cooking with those, but they're really buttery and they have lots of flavor. So I'm taking about 15 Ritz crackers, crumbling them up. I need cracker crumbs. Just break them up into the food processor. This is retro food, but made more modern. I really like the salty, kind of buttery thing going with the fish. Okay, that's about a half a cup of Ritz cracker crumbs. If I can get it off. Right into a bowl. And to that, I'm going to add half a cup of panko crumbs and make it really crunchy. 2 tablespoons of minced parsley. 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. Give it lots of flavor. And some melted butter. Just pour it over. And this is going to make it brown and delicious, because butter makes everything better, right? You always want some kind of oil or butter on the panko. Panko is actually Japanese bread flakes, and it's really popular now, and you can find it in any grocery store. I don't know what we did without it 10 years ago. Okay, I'm going to add some lemon zest to give it kind of a nice edge. About a teaspoon. Let's see. I always do it right over the thing that I'm zesting it into because it really catches the oils. Much more flavor. More flavor in the zest than in the juice, but we'll use the juice later. Okay, that should be about a teaspoon. Some salt. Give it a stir. As I said, baked fish can be kind of boring. It's this crumb topping that really gives it so much flavor. Actually, not only is it crumb topping, but it becomes part of the sauce. Okay, the first stage of the fish should be done in the oven. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to add about a quarter of a cup of dry white wine, and I'm going to pour it actually directly on the fillets so the flavor really gets into the fillets. Just like that. A couple of tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice right on the fillets. Try and catch the seeds in your hand. And then I'm going to put the crumbs directly onto the fillets. Just pile them on. If some of them fall into the dish, it's not a problem because they'll really get incorporated in the sauce and flavor the sauce as well. It's a lot of crumbs, but it really gives the whole thing a lot of flavor. I think fish can be kind of scary to cook because you always think you're going to overcook it. But if you have fillets that are all the same thickness and they cook evenly, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, back into the oven, 400 degrees for exactly 12 minutes. It's going to be so good. So the fish should be ready. This looks great. See how it makes crispy topping and also really nice sauce? I love the way it looks. I love the way it tastes. And you can see that the sauce is kind of thickened by the panko. and the Ritz crackers. Yum. So we'll just do a little lemon in the dish. One of the great things about this dish is the dish goes right to the table. Don't need to put it on a platter or anything. I just like to serve it with extra lemon though. Just put it right in the dish. People can help themselves. I just need a little taste because it looks so good. Think anybody missed this little corner? Crispy crumbs, garlic and herbs, white wine and lemon sauce. This looks so good. The garlic and the herbs and the lemon and wine. Nothing boring about this fish dish. Everybody's gonna love it. Salmon with lentils. It's a great party dish because you can make it in huge quantities, but for two, it's also perfect. So I'm gonna make it for Michael and me. So first I'm gonna make the lentils. I'm gonna pour boiling water over the top and just let them soak for about 10 minutes so they soften. So I'm gonna put the lentils aside. I'm gonna saute all kinds of vegetables, cook the lentils with it, and then saute the salmon separately and put it together. So a little bit of olive oil. I have 2 cups of onions. I'm just gonna saute them together. And 2 cups of leeks. They're both pretty much in the same family, but the leeks are a little more delicate than the onions. They're great together. And some fresh thyme, about a teaspoon. None of this has to be exact. So, just saute this for about 10 minutes until the onion's translucent. A little bit of salt. Some pepper. And while that's cooking, I'm gonna cut up some carrot and celery. And put in about a tablespoon of chopped garlic. Cook that for a minute. And then 1½ cups of chopped celery. 1½ cups of chopped carrots. So this is really chunky. It's got lots of flavor, and the lentils are just part of it. Just gonna saute that for a second. 1½ cups of chicken stock. Two tablespoons of tomato paste. Just stir it in. I'm gonna add the lentils. I'm going to cook these together for about 20 minutes, the lentils and the vegetables. Then I'm going to sear the salmon, and then I'm off to Michael's. The key to the salmon is to just sear the outside, so you make a really crisp crust, and then it seals in all the flavor. Drizzle this with a little bit of oil. Okay. Lots of salt and pepper. This is really the only seasoning, so you want to make sure you season it really well. Okay, really hot pan. Just make sure you can really feel it. And then take the salmon and put it in seasoning side down. And just leave it. I know it's really tempting to move it around, but you want to really create a really great crust. So I'm just going to cook it on this side for about 2 minutes and then flip it over and roast it in the oven, and it'll be perfect. It's sort of crusty on the outside and tender inside. Okay, 2 minutes. Let's turn it over. Oops. Okay, into the oven for about 5 to 7 minutes, 450 degrees. This is how they cook it in restaurants, and it comes out perfectly. I'm just going to finish the lentils, and then I'm off to Michael's. Oh, the salmon's perfectly cooked. This is going to be wonderful. So I have a little bit left to do on the lentils. So I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. It just really sort of perks up the flavor a lot. Let's see how this is. I can smell it. I love when it hits the heat. It's delicious. A little more salt. Always needs a little more. The sweetness of the red wine vinegar and the carrots and lentils, it's gonna be great with the salmon. So I'm just gonna take a platter and just fill it up The good news is it's good hot, but it's also good room temperature. The salmon on top. And then the leftovers, I'm going to put in the refrigerator. Love leftovers. Don't have to cook tomorrow night. So I'm going to pack all this up, pack up the pecan bars and the shrimp with Thousand Island dip, and I'm off to Michael's. Hi, Michael. Hi, sweetie.
Good to see you.
Mwah. So I brought lunch for us.
All
How's
this
that?
food? Fabulous. How did you make the shrimp?
Well, I actually roasted them. It's amazing. Big sheet pan, salt and pepper, olive oil in the oven. It's really fast. And I just think it has so much more flavor. Yeah. Didn't grill them. I'm glad you like them. Ready for salmon?
Yes.
Salmon and lentils.
One of my favorite combinations.
Oh, it is? Really?
It
Oh, I'm
is.
so glad.
I love lentils.
How did I know
love
that?
Salmon. Grilled, roasted. The
It's
salmon?
roasted.
It is.
Yeah, it's roasted.
This couldn't have been better.
Oh, there's more.
More? Fabulous.
I think you're gonna like what's more. Pecan bars dipped in chocolate. Help yourself. We're gonna need a nap after lunch. It's really unfair.
I'm so glad you brought lots.
Oh, good. Well, customers will be very happy.
I have a little something as a thank you.
You don't have to do that, but I love surprises.
Oh, great.
Oh, Michael, are those for me?
Aren't they beautiful?
Thank you. Oh, mwah. Peonies, they really are my favorite.
Mine too.
They're fabulous. They're so beautiful. Thank you. I can bring you lunch anytime.
That's a deal. Thanks so much.
So I'm going to make lobster mac and cheese, and it starts with a sauce. The French call it a roux, which sounds really fancy. It's not. Start with butter, 6 tablespoons of butter, and I'm just going to melt that. And then later I'm going to add some flour for thickener. Okay, the next thing is heating up a quart of milk. And what this does is thicken the sauce. When I add the cheese and the pasta, it gives a nice thick mac and cheese, classic mac and cheese. And then I'm going to mix into the butter half a cup of flour. And the thing about making a roux, or white sauce, is you want the flour to cook for a minute or two so it doesn't have that sort of raw flour taste. Okay, milk looks like it's hot, just under simmering. Just going to pour it in. And now I'm going to stir it until it gets nice and thick. So this is white sauce, that's it. It's just thickened milk, and it's going to make fantastic mac and cheese. Okay, I'm going to turn the heat off next to the cheese. That's the good part. So that's about 2 cups of grated cheddar, and I'm going to do 4 cups of grated Gruyere. Just cut it so it fits in the feed tube, just like that. Okay, into the pan with lots of flavorings. I just think it's going to go so well with lobster. That's a lot of cheese. It makes 8 servings. 1 tablespoon of salt. I use kosher salt. 1 teaspoon of pepper. Give it a little heat. And half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Sort of a classic French gratin seasoning. Just think brings out the nuttiness of the cheeses. Stir that together. This is going to be really good mac and cheese. Okay, next I need some pasta. Once it's drained, it goes right back into the sauce and cheese. Yeah, okay. This looks delicious. All the pasta and the cheese, and wait till I put lobster in. It's going to get even better. Okay, I'm going to cut up 1.5 pounds of lobster. So I'm going to leave some of the big pieces whole, and then the really big ones I'm going to chop up. Okay, all this is just going to go right into the pot. This may be one of my favorite dishes of all time. So good. Big stir. Okay, now I'm going to get the topping ready. First, I need some melted butter. 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. So these are breadcrumbs. It's really fresh bread that I just ground up in the food processor. And what this is going to do is when it's in the oven, it's going to get brown and crusty. So I'm just going to sprinkle this right on top. Into the oven, 375 degrees for 30 minutes, and they're going to be bubbly and crusty on the top. It's going to be so good. Lobster mac and cheese. Now, I don't know anybody that wouldn't want that for dinner. Okay, that's 3 tablespoons of olive oil and about 3 tablespoons of butter. I do the olive oil because it has a high burning temperature and the butter because it has lots of flavor. I know this looks like a lot, but it's the sauce for the entire dish. And about 1.5 tablespoons of garlic. With garlic, you really don't want to cook it too long, so just about a minute. Nothing worse than the flavor of burnt garlic. So 1 minute while I get everything else ready. So the first thing is shrimp. And what I buy is peeled and deveined shrimp from the fish store. If you can't buy it, you can always peel and devein it yourself. I'm going to add a pound of shrimp and just cook it for a very short time, like 3 to 5 minutes. And all that flavor of the garlic is going to get into the shrimp. So first thing I'm going to do is salt and pepper the shrimp. I want it to have lots of flavor because when you add the pasta, the sauce has to flavor the pasta also. So it's going to be really strongly flavored. Just turn the shrimp so they cook evenly on both sides. It smells so good, all that garlic and butter and oil. How bad can that be? Michael's so great with flowers. I can't wait to see what he's doing at the table.
That looks good. I hope Anna likes it.
So, just drain the water from it, and then it's going to go right into that pan with the shrimp and the garlic and butter and oil. It's going to absorb all that great flavor. Okay, just like that. 2 spoons. Just toss it all together. This is actually a great way to make any pasta. Italians do it. Even when you're making pasta with tomato sauce, is you cook the pasta and the sauce together for the last few minutes, and it really absorbs the flavor. Okay, and then the last ingredients are lemon zest, lemon juice, I like a little bit of heat, so just a sprinkling of red pepper flakes. Okay, just toss that together, and then I have 2 more things to put in. Parsley. Okay, right on top. And then because I want you to know, you can't really see the lemon, but I want you to know it's lemon, what I do is a few thin slices of lemon. People aren't going to eat them, but they'll see that it's lemon. So I'm going to add a few slices of lemon to the whole thing before I finish its tossing. This is really a great summer lunch.